Last week marked an unhappy anniversary for Maine. It was just a year ago that the twin January storms clobbered the coast.
Some damage still needs to be repaired, and many towns are still waiting for federal damage payments to arrive. One of the leaders of the storm recovery effort here at home has been an organization in Rockland a lot of Mainers may not know, the Island Institute. 207's Don Kerrigan has a story of how they're helping Maine prepare for the next storms.
Those storms of 2024 lashed and smashed much of our coast, wreaking havoc on many of Maine's fishing harbors. The storm surge even reaching 13 miles up the Damariscotta River.
All of this was underwater by, I'd say, 1.5 to 2 feet with the storm surge.
For Brendan Parsons, the flooded town parking lot was the least of his problems. He also owns an oyster farm, and his 2 docks on the river took big hits.
The one to the south was completely taken out and ruined, and then the one north of here was lifted and misplaced.
His damage, of course, was just a small part of the tens of millions suffered by Maine's working waterfront. And that destruction brought a new focus on an institution the coast has known for decades, the Island Institute.
In the wake of the storms, we had, as an organization, we're made for this moment. We recognize that all of the work we've done over the past several decades on climate resilience and on working waterfront allowed us to understand and really be able to move quickly in the aftermath of the storm.
Sam Belknap has worked on the coastal economy for the Island Institute for years. His own family owns a working dock, and in the wake of those storms, he heard plenty.
And I think the most resonant thing that we've heard is just how much the impact of these on these working waterfronts and these individual businesses have rippled through the community. These are really centerpieces of communities. They're not just a business, they're an economic driver.
Program Director Jennifer Seavey says it was all hands on deck for everyone at the Institute.
And so to see this infrastructure be impacted like that really hit home.
So the Island Institute began helping waterfront businesses, coastal towns, and their fishermen to assess damage, deal with state agencies, and figure out where to look for help. She says those storms were a wake-up call for many.
People just got a real glimpse of what the future is going to look like. So we're not going to have those storms every year. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that those storms represent what it's going to look like in the future. And so it is really crystal clear to all of us in Maine of what we need to prepare to and for.
And being prepared brings up that word so many are using, resilience.
This is the type of investment that all wars need to be making.
This fishing dock in Tennant's Harbor was rebuilt a few years ago by the private owner and the lobster co-op that share it. Built higher than it used to be, just in case.
The water was a foot below the decking when most of the wharves along the coast were underwater.
And is that a lesson?
It is absolutely a lesson that I think everyone needs to pay attention to.
Along with the need for local planning, raising the level of docks and even shorefront buildings is a primary message from the Island Institute.
But really the rebuild has to start now, and not just rebuilding to the next fishing season, but rebuilding to the next 20, 30 years.
But doing it, he says, will carry a very big price.
We're probably talking close to $500 million to really prepare the coast for the climate challenges ahead.
And that's a big reason the Island Institute is working with towns and property owners to do the planning, to seek out grants and get it all moving.
A really good example of that the Island Institute helped with is all the 15 year-round islands in Maine have all joined together, and we helped them write a grant to FEMA to get money to do hazard mitigation planning.
Back on the river, Brendan Parsons is still hoping for a state grant to help rebuild his storm-damaged docks. And he says the other oyster farms on this river will need to do it too.
There's, I believe, over 100 employees in total on the river that work and depend on it, and that's excluding other lobstermen. That's just the oyster industry. And so, yes, it is in our best collective interest to figure out a plan and adjust and be resilient.
meaning just about everyone along our coast has a stake in getting the work done.
Well, Dawn alluded to it there, and the folks at the Island Institute say all that work of creating resilience on the waterfront needs to start with planning. And they say towns especially need to develop those plans because that can help when it's time to look for money.
Truly takes a village to fight
Absolutely.
back against this stuff.